No Words or Truth podcast. My apologies for not having recorded any segments lately. I've been under the weather for a little bit over a week now, but I definitely wanted to come and speak on the Tyre Nichols case. As a black mother with a black son, once again, we are faced with these stories and these tragedies that we have to explain to our kids, but we have to teach them how to handle and address the police. For those who are unfamiliar, Tyre Nichols is the 29-year-old man who was pulled over supposedly for a traffic stop and beaten and violently attacked by 5 black police officers in Memphis, Tennessee on January 7th. Unfortunately, he passed away 3 days later in the hospital due to his injuries. This week, these officers were charged with murder, and on Friday, the city of Memphis released the body cam footage and the surveillance from a local phone pole that also had a camera on it. These stories, we're constantly hearing them, but what makes this one so bad is that usually when we hear these stories, it's like a race thing. It's, young black man attacked by Caucasian officers. And that's the story that we run with. But what makes this one even worse is that it was 5 black officers that attacked this man. And this altercation went on for apparently about 31 minutes. Is how long this whole ordeal took. Apparently, the city of Memphis has not confirmed this, but there's supposedly, the story is that he was pulled over for a traffic stop. No one really knows the details of that because the body cam footage didn't really give much to it. But initially, he was pulled over, he was screamed at, he was cursed at, he was told to get the F out the car, and the officers were already approaching him, guns drawn, and he did comply with them. He was explaining to them that he was complying with them. They were still yelling at him, cursing at him, screaming at him, berating him, and they threatened to tase him. They were already being violent within the first altercation. Eventually, it goes on. It's a lot to unpack here, so I'm going to try to go through it, but there's a lot of footage from different body cams, and like I said, the utility pole that also had a surveillance camera on it. If you can go to CNN, you'll see the footage. It's very graphic. It's very heart-wrenching to watch, but it's a lot going on. But he eventually gets off the ground. He tries to flee and he wants to run, and they tase him. And once they tase him, I believe at some point he was pepper sprayed, and the body cam report, according to CNN, they kind of have it, the transcript written out of what was said. One of the officers, I guess he got pepper sprayed as well somehow, and he was saying how he couldn't see, and the other officers, some ran down on Mr. Nichols, and they attacked him, and they pinned him down to the ground, and they began to beat him with their batons and their nightsticks, and they kicked him, and they punched him in his face. And they're saying that he was hit or struck at least 9 times in under 4 minutes. I don't know what he could have been doing that was so aggressive to them that they would need to attack him in that nature. All through the videos and the clips that you hear him saying, "I'm complying, I'm on the ground. I'm not," he's not trying to fight them off. So why they felt the need to attack this man like this, the only thing that I can see is just, abuse of their power, pretty much. That's all I can get from this, because at this point, it's not even a race thing. At this point, it's black on black crime, which makes it even worse. Makes it 100 times worse. That these gentlemen would use their power like this and take that time to just pour all this violence onto this man. Apparently, they're from some unit called Scorpion. I don't remember the exact definition of the acronym, but it has something to do with upholding the safety of the neighborhood. All this violence and aggression and the beating and the punching and the kicking, none of that shows upholding the safety of the neighborhood or the community. You know, it's a lot, because you have to explain these things to your children. But now we have to explain to our children to beware of all police, because you never know who you're going to encounter. And I've been listening to CNN, and a lot of the reports are, you know, people from different police departments in different cities and different states. And they're saying that a lot of the problem is that these officers are not being vetted properly. They come from different task force where maybe more aggression and, you know, physical hands-on were used, or maybe they came from like correctional units, different things like this, and they're just thrown into the police department. They have no empathy. They have no sense of morals. It's just arrest, make arrest, you know, get your arrest count up, things like that. I've been hearing a lot about that, about how certain units in different departments are more into how many arrests, more so than the quality. They're into the quantity of the arrests. So it's like by any means necessary. And at this point, these people need to be vetted. They need to be having, like, before you become an officer and you come out of the academy, you need to be having training done. You need to be having mental exams done, physical exams. There's people that show aggression and rage. If you have those type of mentalities and those type of personalities, you shouldn't be in a department that is there to uphold and serve a community safely, because you may snap and someone can lose their life because of something going on with you in your mind, or, you know, in your thought process. So it seems like the police department all over, law enforcement all over, needs to be vetted, and they need to have some type of background check, personality. We do background checks all the time for jobs. They make you take personality tests to see if you work well with other people, if you will be good with customers. Law enforcement definitely needs this, because these people, some feel underpaid, some are stressed out, some work in crazy task force and different types of units, some come from gang units, and then they try to be regular police officers and they don't know how to deal with people, and then people lose their lives. But I am glad that they are making an example out of these gentlemen in Memphis, because it needs to be known that just because you carry a badge does not mean that you are over anyone else in terms of being above the law. I'm very glad that they are holding them accountable for their actions. But as black men, they should be ashamed of themselves. We've seen the George Floyd case and the Trayvon Martins and so many others. How dare you, as a black man, lay your hand on another black man and think that that's okay? And then what makes it so bad is that when the EMTs did show up, even with this man slumped over on a vehicle, you know, on CNN, they were talking to Sanjay Gupta, asking about the injuries that he sustained, how that could have affected him. And he was saying that at that point he was in critical condition. And if his brain was swelling, he was slowly losing oxygen to the brain. How dare you have EMTs and emergency services on site and no one is rendering aid to this man? So there's so many people that took part in this that at the time probably didn't even realize that they could be held responsible. But the EMTs, I believe some of the EMTs are now being investigated and they're temporarily suspended. Those officers obviously have lost their jobs. They're charged with murder. And the sheriff has also recently, I believe when the body cam footage came out, the sheriff had just found out that two of his deputies were on site after the altercation and still did nothing to help this man. So now they are on leave and being investigated. It's so many parts to this thing, and it just keeps coming out. And I feel so bad for his mother, because like they were interviewing his mom, and you could tell she wasn't all the way in her right state of mind. Like she's literally grieving for her son. And then in the next breath, she's saying she feels sorry for these men. You know, that takes some type of grace to be able to feel sorry for the people that killed your son. But it's a lot to unpack, and obviously more things are going to come out as, you know, further investigation of the videos and all of those present do come out. And then I forget about this too. The mother and the father said that because, you know, he was in the video and he was like only a few feet from home, I believe, and he was yelling for his mother as they're beating on him and they're dragging him through the street. And these men had the nerve to go to his mother's home and tell the mother that there was an altercation. He was pulled over for a traffic stop, and he was injured in some way, and he was being taken to the hospital, and then he would be taken to holding. Like, they had a whole story, a whole backstory made up for this, to give this family, knowing that they just beat the hell out of her son moments before. Like, you've got to be not in your right mind. Something's got to be wrong with you to be able to know you've committed such an act, and then to go calmly to these people's homes as if nothing really happened. You didn't just damn near beat the shit out this man and almost kill him and leave him there. Didn't render him aid for almost 30 minutes. They said it took at least 20 minutes for them to even bring a gurney out of the ambulance to even prepare him to go to the hospital. So it's like no one cared at that point. No one wanted to know what happened. No one cared. It's just, we're all in this unit. We're all part of law enforcement and, you know, emergency services, and we're above the law, and we don't have to treat him like anything less than a human. That's so crazy to me, like so crazy. And the mother said they asked could they go to the hospital, and they told them no. So her and her husband proceeded to leave to go find out what really happened to their son. Like, what in the world? Like, now it's just like it's criminal acts by law enforcement, and then they're trying to cover their tracks. It's so much, and it's like, I wonder, like, do the people who are over these officers, did they even know that these people went to their home? On the CNN interview, there were different law enforcement interviews going on, and someone said that that's not even, there's a protocol before you even go to a family's home. So, like, was anyone aware that you were even going to these people's home with this convoluted story about what you wanted to tell them happened? They told the mother that they believed he was high or drunk or something like that. Like, it's like people will say anything just to do what they please, and you're supposed to go along with it. And I'm glad his family didn't go along with it, and that they really went on their own to go find out what happened to their son. And sadly, 3 days later, he died due to his injuries. These men need to be, man, these men, it's horrible. It's horrible. The stigma that they've placed on the police department, the stigma that they've now placed on black police officers. Because, like I said before, it was a thing where we were race. White officers, black men, targeted. No, now it's just, period. Police departments, period. Law enforcement, period. You're black, you're targeted. So now you have to sit your kids down, and you have to have another conversation with your children now, because you don't, at this point, you don't know who to tell them to trust anymore. It's just a lot. Like I said, it's a lot to unpack with this right here. But, you know, as more updates become available, I'm definitely going to share it with you all, because this is just sad for our community. This is sad for us as parents with sons, with black children, to have to continuously go through these loops and explain these things to them. You know, and these officers ought to be ashamed of themselves. Their families should be ashamed of them. They should be disgraced, because how dare you? Thanks again for tuning into Her Words, Her Truth podcast.